Okay, here we have an item from my students' work last night they were supposed to work on, and they said they had some trouble with this item, so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how they can solve it. What we're doing here is we're working on demonstrating what properties of multiplication we're going to use to solve these problems. Now, the first thing I want to do is make sense of my problem, and the best way to do that is to read the situation. And then I'll try to come up with a plan and approach and see how I can solve it. It says, Devin used the properties of multiplication to evaluate the expression. Why did he solve the problem this way? Is his work correct? Be sure to indicate which property of multiplication he used. So the problem that Devin had to start out with was 8 times p times 1. And it looks like Devin...
Holly Shells, come to the office, please. Holly Shells.
It looks like Devin went ahead and he tried to solve the problem. He rewrote it, and then he essentially, it looks like, went through the order of operations. He said 8 times p is 8p, and then he says times 1, but now here's his mistake. He says 8p times 1 equals 1. Now, when I look at that, I know what he did wrong. He messed up with one of the best properties of multiplication that there is, and that is the identity property of multiplication. And the identity property of multiplication means anytime you multiply a factor by 1 or a form of 1, for instance, instead of saying 8p times 1, it could have said 8p times 5 over 5. 5 over 5 is the form of 1. But anyhow, since we have 8p times 1, and we're using this multiplicative identity property, our product is going to be the factor we start out with. So if we have 8p times 1, then our answer is 8p, just like that. 8p, just like that. So in this situation, if I were to write it out, and I'm using what I know, this goes on in math practice number 3, using what I know about the multiplicative identity property, I know that Devin should have said 8 times p times 1 equals 8p. And I know that because anytime you multiply a factor by 1, your product will be the factor you start out with. Alright, now I have a class load of students in the room right now who are actively listening to me. I'm very proud to see that. Let me see a show of hands. How many of you who didn't need help with this item, you said that the answer should have been 8p and you know that they should have used the multiplicative identity property? Okay, I'm seeing some hands up. How many of you who missed it, now, or maybe just struggled with it, how many of you now see how it should have been done? Okay, so I see a lot of kids' hands up with better understanding, so that's great. Great.